come on. Hi guys and welcome back to the Toffee Blues. My name is Cameron. I'm joined by Jordan again. We're going to talk about another player today, another player-focused live stream. This week we're going to focus on Michael Keane. Obviously last week we focused on Luca Dean. The week before we focused on Jordan Pickford. And we've decided to sit down and talk a little bit about Michael Keane today. A player that I think we've probably got conflicting views on a little bit. And I'm sure that, a lot of Evertonians out there have probably got conflicted views on Michael Keane as well. Because I don't necessarily think Michael Keane's that bad of a player. Certainly not as bad as some people think he is. I think when Michael Keane's on his day, he can be absolutely fantastic. And we've seen a couple of those performances from Michael Keane since Carlo Ancelotti's come in. And obviously he's found that partnership alongside Mason Holgate a little bit more than Yerry Mina's found it. And he's had some decent performances. And like I said, when he's confident, Michael Keane, he's absolutely fantastic. He's really dominant. He wins balls in the air. And he can play his game a little bit more because he's got a centre-half next to him in Mason Holgate who can do the running, who's got the legs, who brings the ball out. He doesn't really have to focus on that as much because I don't think that's a strong point. He can just focus on being that big centre-half, and he's played really, really well. But there's also been times this season and since he's joined Everton where I've sort of thought, I don't know whether this fella's good enough. When he's not confident, he makes silly mistakes. His positioning can be pulled into question as well at times. So we thought we'd sit down and talk about him and basically give our opinions on whether we think Michael Keane has a future at Everton ultimately. But before we go into it, we're another week down in lockdown. There's going to be some form of meeting this weekend. We don't know what's going to happen. 7 weeks this week. I'm bored shitless. How are you, mate? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Stuff in the house. So my hobbies include being indoors, so, playing PlayStation and watching films, doing the garden. But yeah, you want it to get back to normal. I know it's going to be too early to get back to the match, but obviously we all want that back as well. But just a bit of normality will be nice when it comes to play.
That's it, mate. Just a little bit of something we had before, being able to leave the house in some form of capacity other than just for an hour. Like you said, I've not been too bad in terms of my hobbies. I'm like you, I just basically sit in playing PlayStation, watching films. I've been away from the missus, so I've spent a lot of time on Skype and stuff. But I do firmly believe if we lived together, I'd be absolutely in my element now. But there you go. Hopefully we found some update out at the weekend. So anyway, obviously the football will return in some capacity over the next couple of weeks. We won't talk about it too much, but the Bundesliga is due to come back on the 15th of May, I believe. So it'll be really, really interesting to have a little look at John Joe Kenny and also a couple of potential players that have been linked with moves to Everton. But talking solely on Michael Keane then, how have you taken Michael Keane since he joined Everton? Obviously, come in from Burnley around about £30 million. He was a real good signing when we brought him in. A little bit like Jordan Pickford was. We were bringing this player in, Michael Keane, and we thought, you know what? This is the type of centre-half we need. Obviously, we'd come off the back of having absolute rubbish like Ashley Williams, not long had Alcaraz as well, and he was the sort of signing who had done really, really well at Burnley, come from Manchester United's academy, and we brought him in and he had a lot of promise and a lot of potential. So how do you feel Michael Keane's done since he's obviously joined Everton? I think it's 3 years this summer.
Very topsy-turvy. When he come in and we signed him, I was like, we're really making things happen here because he is a solid English centre-half, knows the game. And my favourite centre-half at Everton were always Dave Watson and Phil Jagielka. So I just thought, you know what, that's traditional Everton. Just get a good English centre-half there who knows the game, as it is at home and stuff. But after a shaky first season, I weren't convinced at all. I was just... There was times in the match where the ball was just going past them, players were just going past them so easily, and I was just like, this fella is just like, he's not up for it. And surprise, the year after, I ate my words, he was well better, and again, this season he just hasn't been, so it's been topsy-turvy. 2 bad sort of seasons out of 3, but 1 very good one, so I know there's a player in there, but it's one of them. It's one of the hardest videos I think we'll do this because he just splits opinion, doesn't he, Michael Keane? And
yeah, definitely. And like you said, a little bit like Jordan Pickford when we spoke about him a couple of weeks ago. He's been here now for near enough 3 seasons if we round it up, and you could almost look at that as one not great season, one decent season, and then one season where he's been a little bit up and down. So there is the question there. I suppose a lot of the questions surround Michael Keane as well, are coming from all of the rumours that we're seeing in the news and that we're seeing over the internet over the last couple of weeks, is that Everton are apparently really, really interested in bringing in a centre half. We've been linked with the likes of Todibo, who's from Barcelona, currently on loan at Schalke. We've been linked with Gabriel numerous times as well. So it'll be really, really interesting to see where Michael Keane's future is. I know from talking to Evertonians and from doing the live streams, whenever you mention Everton being linked with a centre half, the first centre half that people want to sell or people ultimately want to get out the door in order to make room for the new signing is Michael Keane. Now, I don't know whether I am fully on board with that. I think if we do bring in another centre half, then Michael Keane and Yerry Mina's future at Everton will be in doubt, because realistically we can't have three 30-odd million pound players. Let's say we buy a new centre half for 30-odd million pound. We can't have three 30-odd million pound centre halves in the squad and two of them sitting on the bench, because Mason Holgate's going to be a starter. But I'm not completely convinced that Yerry Mina's done an awful lot since he's come in. Definitely, in order to sell Michael Keane. How would you feel about that? Say we were to make that sign and say we were to bring in a centre half this summer, whether it be Gabriel, Todibo or somebody else. Do you think that the club would want to keep both Keane and Mina, or personally would Michael Keane be the player you'd like to see, or you'd probably think would be leaving the football club?
I sort of agree with you to an extent, where you can't have that many £30 million players on the bench, but I remember when we finished the window, I sort of had a little dig at Brands on the internet, and everyone was just saying, you're being negative, and I'm very positive about Everton, I feel. But what it was, I weren't happy that we had three centre-halves. Yeah. Now, if you go into a season needing three goalkeepers, surely you need more than three centre-halves, because they take up two positions. Yeah. So I would personally love it not love it, but if we brought a centre-half in, Gabriel or Todibo, I would personally like to still keep Michael Keane and have four centre-halves. Okay. Now, whether they're looking at Lewis Gibson instead of Michael Keane, or, like you said, Yerry Mina, that might be an option. But personally, I am a fan of Yerry Mina, and if it was out of them two, I would personally keep Yerry Mina. I think he's been one of our most consistent players this year, along with Dom and Richarlison, to be honest, and Holgate. Yeah.
He has had a good second season, hasn't he?
Who's that? Sorry, Yerry Mina.
Yerry Mina, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he's put a foot wrong. And I know we're not here to talk about Mina, but people saying he was Bambi on ice at times, and I just don't get that at all. I think he's a very, what's the word? Controlled centre half, is it? I think he's just good on the ball and stuff. Yeah. So I would personally keep him over Michael Keane, to be honest. But yeah, it's one of them, innit? I would personally prefer four centre halves, definitely. Yeah.
No, I do see where you're coming from, and in an ideal world, obviously, we could keep Michael Keane and both Yerry Mina. I think the only trouble will be the financial fair play stuff and having to, I hate this whole thing when you go on social media and there's this sort of stigma around clubs as, you're a selling club, you've got to sell to buy. Well, realistically, every football club's got to sell to buy now, because you can't just go out and spend 200 million and keep every single player in your squad. If you're bringing in players, you have to sell players in order to be in that financial fair play gap. And I do worry about Michael Keane's future if that is to be the case, because again, like we said, he probably has been the most inconsistent out of them all. 6 or 7 months ago, we might have been sitting here saying Michael Keane's future's safe and it'll be Mason Holgate who'll leave the football club, but obviously things change in football quite quickly. So
certainly staying at the start of the season.
exactly. And Mason now is probably our best centre half. But just talking about Michael Keane, we mentioned off camera, and we mentioned it briefly before. He's a massive confidence player, isn't he? He's a player that when he's confident, he's absolutely fantastic. But when he's not confident, he has a merge. Do you think that it's just a matter of time before he finds that stable sort of in between where he can consistently perform at a level that we need him to perform at? Because like I said, on one hand you can have a Michael Keane performance. If you were to say to me, right, it's 5-2, the team comes out in 5 minutes, Michael Keane is going to play with loads of confidence today, I'd want him in that team 100% of the time. But if you were to say he's not very confident. You know, he hasn't had a good week. He's going to be a little bit shaky. I wouldn't want him anywhere near it because I think, like I said before, I think his positioning comes into question. I think his decision making comes into question. I think his ability at times comes into question when he's not confident. So, do you feel like Michael Keane can find that steady balance at some point, or do you think he's always going to be a player that's a little bit topsy-turvy, like you said, a little bit up and down?
It's a hard one. I do feel that he will always be like that, unfortunately. But like you said, on his day, he is brilliant. If you go back to the derby last year when it was 0-0, was it last year at home? I think
yes, it was Goodison, yeah.
I thought he was man of the match. I thought he was absolutely brilliant, and that last-ditch tackle he done on Salah, I think it was. I just thought he was magnificent that day, and if he could do that all the time, he'd be number one on the team sheet. Never mind number one defender. Yeah. But he's definitely a confidence player, and I'm not blaming the fans here, but he's sort of turned into one of them, hasn't he, with the fans, like, quick to jump on his back. I remember the Leicester game at home this year, like, he done a clearance and it just went out for a throw-in, and it was a terrible clearance, but everyone was just on his back straight away, and I could just see his confidence was knocked for nearly the whole of the start of the season, really. But he is definitely a confidence player. If I was going to pick one confidence player in the Everton team, it's him, in my opinion. But it also comes into play where I feel like it depends. Like, going back to what you said before, I do feel like sometimes it depends who he's alongside. Because when he was with Zuma is one of them who sort of attacks the ball, and he's pacey. And like Holgate, I think he is actually better with Holgate, because Holgate's that sort of player. When he's with Mina, it doesn't quite work. Similar. Yeah, so that does also come into the play, but his confidence is a big issue in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the best teams like Man City, Liverpool, obviously, gotta have to say it, but they are. They don't really have many inconsistent players in their team, do they? Let's be honest. That's why they're at the top.
No, exactly, and it's because you need that consistency, and that little analogy I said before, unfortunately, you don't get that where somebody says, right, he's going to be confident or he's not going to be confident. You purely have to ask the player, and he could come out and say, yeah, I'm dead confident, and then step on that pitch and fall to bits. So it's risky, isn't it? And like you said there, it's all about perspective really, and where we look to be. If we're going to be, before anybody jumps on me back for this, I'm not saying we are or we should be, but if we were to be a team that are just floating around mid-table in the Premier League, bouncing around European positions, maybe fighting for the Europa League, then you could say, you know what, Michael Keane could be a prize asset. He could be a good player, good squad player who can come in and who can play, 25, 30 games a season. But from what we're hearing from the football club and in the AGMs and from the manager, we're a club at the moment, we're a side that want to be fighting in the Champions League, want to be winning Premier League trophies, and whenever you say that on any type of social media, loads of other fans from other clubs start getting on your back. Don't be stupid this. But this isn't Everton fans making this up. This is coming directly from the club. We're feeding back what the club are saying to us, and the club are saying, listen, we've brought in a Champions League winning, Premier League winning, proven manager. We want Everton in the next 3-4 years, whatever it might be, when we're going into Bramley Moor, we want Everton to be fighting for the Premier League, we want Everton to be fighting for the Champions League, and like you said, if we're going to be doing that, we need consistent players, and we need players that you can trust, and don't get me wrong, Michael Keane could be a decent squad player, and a player that might play in cup competitions and might not play every week in the Premier League. But, it's whether he'd want to be that for the start. It's whether he'd be happy with being that. He might turn around and say, if I'm not playing week in, week out, I don't want to be at the football club. John mentioned there Lewis Gibson as well. Lewis Gibson's another player who will be strongly looking at to breed into the first team and to get first team experience. Obviously, he's gone out on loan. I think he's at Fleetwood now. He's had a decent season there. So, he's another name that'll be thrown into the hat as well. I suppose, on the topic of selling Michael Keane, if it did come about, I'm assuming that where would you feel Michael Keane would sit if we brought in another centre half? Do you think he'd be third choice? Do you think he'd be fourth choice?
Well, when I said before, I prefer 4 defenders. That does not mean that Michael Keane starts. So it depends if he's. I don't know if he would be happy doing that. All right, I know players obviously want to play, but like I said, he needs to build up a confidence, and maybe coming off the bench a few times or getting the odd game in there will build that. But he wouldn't be a starter. And like I said, all players want to play. He's not going to be happy sitting on the bench, is he? But in an ideal world, if we had Europa League, if we had Champions League, he would come into play. But look at. I just want to. Sorry to mention Liverpool again, but Lovren is probably their fourth choice, is he? And he's probably better than Michael Keane, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe not now, but in his day he was. But I don't know. Sitting anyway in fourth choice back then, was he? But I don't know. I just think he's a better all-round defender, in my opinion. And sorry to upset a few Blues there, but he's fourth choice. But it depends, doesn't it?
It is, and it's difficult, isn't it? And certainly, like we said before, a massive part of this, football nowadays, prior to what's going on in the world at the moment, financial fair play was a massive thing anyway. Now, financial fair play may be relaxed in some way or shape or form this summer and for the next couple of transfer windows, but teams aren't going to be spending as much money as they usually would, and players' wages aren't going to be as high as they usually would, simply because of what's going on in the world. And you look at that and you think about that and you think, we may get to a point as a football club where we may have to sell some players that we may not necessarily, desperately, it may not be classed as deadwood, shall we say. I'm not saying we'll be selling Richarlison or Calvert-Lewin or Holgate. I'm not saying we'll be selling any of our better players, but I'm saying we may have to come to sell players that, could have potentially done a job, but let's be honest, aren't, in the first team plans going forward. And I think, the likes of Theo Walcott potentially fall into that. Maybe Alex Iwobi, some people would argue, some people wouldn't argue. And I think Michael Keane also does fall into that as well. I think, I'd love to have four centre halves, like you said, and if Michael Keane turned around and said, listen, it may be sitting on the bench for a season or so will give me that opportunity to breed some confidence back and show what I can do, and that's fine. But if a team were to come in with 15-20 million for Michael Keane and then you look at financial fair play and you think, well, we can turn that 20 million into potentially 60 million, and then that can be used to go out and purchase a Gabriel for 25, and then a right winger or a creative midfielder for 40 odd. We could get a decent deal out of that. Where would you stand on that? Do you think what bid would have to come in for you to think, it's probably more beneficial for us to get rid of Michael Keane?
How old is he? 27, is he?
Yeah, he's around that. Yeah,
I think about 20 million, but sort of that. Like I said, I want 4. So that would sort of depend on maybe if they're thinking Lewis Gibson can come through and they're getting Gabriel, there's the 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I personally do not want to go into a season with 3 centre-halves because it's so risky. We have been very, very lucky this season with the injuries at centre-half.
Yeah, we have.
If 2 of them get injured, you've got 1, and we've got Gabaman, but he's out as well.
Exactly. No, I agree.
I know. Yeah, I know he can play centre-half. It's too risky, in my opinion, to go 38 games. All right, I know you can buy in January, but sometimes in January you don't get your bang for your buck, do you? So I think it's very risky to go in 38 games with 3 defenders. Yeah. So if we were going to sell him, they'd have to look at bringing 1 in, definitely, and moving Lewis Gibson up. If they don't think Lewis Gibson's good enough, I don't think 20 million might cut it, to be honest, unless they were going to bring 2 in, which again comes into fair play, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it. If you're enjoying the team, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. It only takes a second. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Links are down below. Hit the button, like the video, get a share. Let's get as many people in here as possible. I agree. I think we came into this current season with only 3 centre halves, and I think I always say this. I think Brand spent a lot of time focused on Kurt Zouma and spent a lot of his energy trying to make that deal happen, and ultimately when it didn't happen, it was shown that we didn't have a backup plan. There was nothing to fall back on, and we came into this season with effectively, we had 3 centre-halves, but effectively we had 2 centre-halves, because Mason Holgate at that point, let's not forget, people were looking at going, he's not Premier League quality, he can't play centre-half, he's not good enough. And the people that weren't saying that were saying, okay, he might be Premier League quality, but he's a right-back. He'd just come off a loan from West Bromwich Albion, where he'd spent, pretty much all this time there playing at right back. So there wasn't many Evertonians, if any, that were sitting there going, well, Mason Holgate could come in and do a good job at centre-half. They were either saying he's potentially not good enough or he's a right back, let's be honest. So, and that was a big worry of mine, because like you said, now we look back on it, we came into the season with 3 centre-halves, and ultimately the centre-half that we were a little bit unsure about has ended up being our best one. But at the start of the season, thinking back to what 10 months ago, 8 months ago, whenever it was, I wasn't thinking about Mason Holgate. I was thinking, shit, we're coming into the season with Yerry Mina and Michael Keane as our centre-back partnerships, and we've got a couple of young players, Mason Holgate included, who could come in, but Morgan Feeney was in that bracket for me as well. Lewis Gibson was in that bracket of players that it's massively risky because we don't know how good they're going to be, and I think that's what Brand sort of let himself down with, is that, you know, we struggled a little bit. So I agree with you, and I think, you know, having 3 is just the same as what we're at now, and it, you know, it only takes a couple of players to get an injury, or one of them to get a knock, and we're in trouble there. So I think, you know,
just to quickly say, if he did bring Zuma in, who's to say Holgate would have even got his chance?
Exactly, and you know, that's it, isn't it? And we mightn't have seen Mason Holgate might have then been sold and or put back on loan, and you know, we wouldn't be where we are today with him. But I agree in terms of Michael Keane. I think if he is to stay at the football club, he's probably not looking at a lot of game time. If we get into a European competition, you know, obviously it's a lot more beneficial, because ideally you'd want 4 centre-halves for that, 2 centre-halves for the European competition, 2 centre-halves for the Premier League. You know, so I agree, and if we're playing in the Europa League, you know, group stages against some team nobody's ever heard of, Michael Keane could potentially do a job. But again, he's still a player that bases his form off confidence, and like you mentioned earlier on, Everton fans aren't the greatest of fans to have a player that bases their form off confidence, because any one little thing that players do tends to get a lot of groans, tends to get a lot of people saying, oh, you know, you're not good enough, this, that, the other, and it only takes a player to have a run of 4 or 5 bad games, and there's a lot of Evertonians that won't look back from that point. There's still a lot of Evertonians now that are adamant that Dominic Calvert-Lewin still isn't good enough to play in the Premier League. I just before the break, when he was, you know, smashing goals in left, right and centre, and we were talking about him on live streams and videos, there were still people in comments of those videos, there were still people on Twitter saying he's still not good enough. So it's tough for Michael Keane, and I suppose that if he is to stay at Everton, he does have to come to the, you know, the conclusion, and he does have to accept the fact that if we do bring in another centre-half, he's probably going to fall a lot, you know, he's probably going to fall under that pecking order a lot more. John just says in the comments, we'll get into the comments in a second, John says, Mina, Holgate, Keane, Gabriel and Gibson next season, assuming that we bring Gabriel in and Gibson gets given his opportunity. So that's 5 centre-halves to choose from. Yeah, which is a decent number, especially considering Gibson can still play in the under-23s. There's no... You know, Gibson isn't just going to sit on the bench every week and not do anything. He'll still be playing for the under-23s. And then, yeah, I agree with you, to be honest. I think then you've got, you know, probably Holgate and Gabriel who start, and Keane and Mina on the bench. But, you know, well, one of Keane and Mina on the bench and the other one as a sort of backup, and those players change. So I suppose realistically, Michael Keane's future depends on the player himself and where Carlo Ancelotti, you know, sees the football club going, and if we do any business in the summer, really, in regards to centre-half, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just quickly as well. He might, I don't know how often Ancelotti does this, but sometimes he might play for the 5 at the back. Yeah. You know, so there's 3 centre-halves, you know what I mean? So ideally 5. I don't know if that's one too many, maybe, but I sort of want our young players to come through a little bit. I sort of do want Gibson to come up. So... But yeah, 5 would be perfect. Yeah. But is that going to stop Lewis Gibson on the other hand? It's a catch-22, that one.
That is, exactly. And, you know, ultimately, I am disappointed when I don't see players from the academy and stuff getting their opportunities. And, you know, listen, I'm not a coach. You know, I don't sit and watch these players at Finch Farm. So I could sit here and say I'm disappointed with the fact that Kieran Dowell isn't playing consistent first-team football for Everton, because 2 or 3 years ago he was touted to be one of the best youngsters in the country. Yeah. And a coach at Everton could turn around to me and said, shut up, lad, you don't know what you're talking about. He's not progressed. Yeah. He hasn't got the right attitude. So it's difficult, especially when talking about the younger players and making that transition. But I agree, I'd want Lewis Gibson to be definitely a centre-half that will be playing first-team football for Everton come the next sort of 4 or 5 years or so. Definitely leading a centre-half that's in and around the first team when we move into the new stadium. And you know, obviously in regards to other players from the academy as well, look at some of our best players over the years that come from the academy. Wayne Rooney, I know we absolutely hate Ross Barkley, but Ross Barkley broke into the Everton team as a 16-year-old kid because we simply didn't have anybody to fill that position. And that 2013-14 season, I still think he was one of the best players in Europe. at that point. I really do. Anthony Gordon's another one who I'd like to see playing consistent Premier League football. So I suppose with Michael Keane, he probably has got maybe a short-term future at the football club. Like I said, for me, it does depend on how the football club balance their finances this summer and how Everton decide, whether if we're bringing another centre-half, is it simply one in, one out, or is it maybe, one centre-half in and then maybe if we can get rid of some of the dead. Well, don't get me wrong, if we can sell Balassi, Sandro, Besic, a load of these players that aren't going to play for Everton Football Club's first team ever again, then we might have to be faced with a situation where Michael Keane or Theo Walcott are coming into the discussion to sell. But realistically, looking at Deadwood, it's much easier to say sell them than it is to do it, isn't it? Because the Deadwood, for the reason nobody wants them. So in terms of Michael Keane's future, then if he is to stay beyond the next summer transfer window, do you think that it's a short term thing? Do you think that he's a player that'll be at the club for much longer after that, or do you think he's a player that we may keep on as a squad player, see how he progresses, and then within the next couple of years maybe move him out the team to push somebody like Lewis Gibson further?
Well, just quickly on the Deadwood, that would be ideal because I don't think Michael Keane is anywhere near Deadwood.
No.
So getting them out for the fair play would be fantastic, and then we can bring the centre half in and keep Keane. Ideal situation. But yeah, it could be one of them where if a new defender comes in and Lewis Gibson's pushing, it could be Keane's last season. Yeah. But football is full of surprises. Michael Keane could easily, when the football comes back, just be number one defender again. Yeah. It's just, because at the first season I was writing him off. The season after, he was one of our better players, and he proved that he's got it. Yeah. It's just full of. If you want me to give you an opinion right now, I'd say exactly what you said. It could just be one of them last year, slowly drifted out and sold at the end of it. Yeah. So, but yeah, like I said, he might surprise us.
You're spot on. Football is a weird game. If you were to sit down with any Evertonian 2 or 3 years ago, or 2 years ago before Marco Silva came in and said, in 2 years you'll be managed by Carlo Ancelotti, one of your best players, if not your best player, would be this Richarlison who hasn't scored in 6 months for Watford. Dominic Calvert-Lewin would be scoring every week, and Mason Allgate to be your best centre-half. They'd probably sit down and go, what are you talking about, mate? You haven't got a clue. So football is a strange game, and I agree Michael Keane could very well come back without the crowd, without the fans, and just get his head down and solely focus on his football. And there's no question about it. When he's confident and when he's solely focusing on his football, he is a good centre-half. He really, really is a good centre-half. Like I said, even in recent times, more so than Yerry Mina, I'd say, in recent times, since Carlo Ancelotti's come in, I've seen Michael Keane perform quite well. Next to Mason Allgate, I've seen him demand the defence and really, really take control of that. And maybe having somebody like a Mason Allgate who's got that confidence, who's got that ability, who's got that, I don't want to say arrogance, but you know what I mean. He's got that little bit about him where he believes in his own ability. Maybe having someone like that next to Michael Keane has done him really, really well. So I agree. We'll dive into the live comments then before we finish up. Eugene says, Everton linked with Kluivert. We're linked with everyone at the moment, aren't we? We're linked with Tom, Dick and Harry. He also says, go on. I was going to say, is anyone calling me all sorts over the Lovren comment? No, I don't. No. I agree. Listen, at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, it's tough to compare Everton and Liverpool because Liverpool are where they are and Everton are where we are. You could compare Everton now to Liverpool when Jurgen Klopp first took over. Who knows where Everton will be in 5 years? Jurgen Klopp's been there for 5 years now, and they are where they are. So it's tough, isn't it, to compare? But I understand where you're coming from, and I think, in his day, he was their number one centre-half, wasn't he? Especially when he brought him in from Southampton. Eugene says, Everton will not vote on the Premier League project restart plans. I think everyone will vote. I think Everton will vote to carry on the season, if I'm being honest with you.
They voted. I'm sure they said the other day there was only 6 clubs who don't want him.
Yeah, there's like votes all the time. There's things going on all the time. It's weird. West Ham were one of them clubs, I think. I can't remember where Everton stood, to be honest with you, because Everton were one of the original clubs to vote to continue the season. Villa, I think, were one of the clubs that don't want to restart it because obviously relegation and stuff like that. I honestly, in terms of the Premier League, we may as well talk about it because a couple of people are talking about it in the live comments. In regards to the Premier League returning, I just think they're going to do everything they possibly can to retain it. And I think I said on the live stream with us two last week, and I definitely said it on the Mighty Blues. I joked about them going as far as shortening games to less than 90 minutes, and lo and behold, 4 days later, they come out and say we may have to shorten games to lower than 90 minutes, and I'm just sitting there thinking, I honestly think they would do as much as, like, say, right, we're going to continue the rest of the season, but it's 5-a-side, so pick your best 5 players, we're going on that pitch there, nobody else is involved, just 5 players, 1st to 10 or something. I honestly just, I just think they'll do everything that they can to restart this season. I just don't see in any way, shape or form it being voided. What do you think about the season, mate? What do you think that they're just gonna do as much as they possibly can to restart it?
Yeah, mainly because, and this is why I think loads of clubs will vote for it, apart from the ones down the bottom, obviously, because that could impact them financially. I just think there's too much money involved. And if it's true that, which is probably is true, clubs are going to have to give the TV money back, you know, because if Sky demanded and stuff, and they can't really say no, can they?
Exactly.
So it's all money, and there's a lot of clubs who'll be in a lot of trouble if it doesn't restart. But on the other hand, mate, it's a massive health risk. So I don't know the answer, and I don't think anyone else does. But I do actually think they'll do everything they can to restart it in some way. I don't get the shortening a minute one, really, because they're all on the pitch together for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Does it matter that much?
The mix at the end of the day. It's like the real way they come out. I can't remember which paper it was. It might have been the Telegraph or somebody else. Come out and said, right, that, you know, there's not going to be players. You basically can't be within a certain distance from each other. And then Gary Lineker put a tweet out and was like, aerial duels, corners, slide tackles. You basically you can't. For me, football should not return unless the game can be played as safely as possible, and it can be played in its full capacity. Now, I understand its full capacity will be fans at the stadium, which isn't going to happen. But as soon as you start messing about with the rules, as soon as you start saying players can't jump for headers or players can't tackle each other, don't even talk about bringing it back, because it's an absolute nonsense that any rule, if football is coming back and it's deemed safe to do so, then the safety aspect should be that it can come back, players can play 90 minutes, they can tackle each other, they can sweat on each other, they can hug each other in celebration, maybe kissing's going a little bit too far, but I just don't think it should come back unless it can come back in the way that we know and love it in terms of on the pitch. I don't want to see football coming back and players not be able to jump for balls, or, you know, not be able to slide tackle each other, or when they're celebrating they're having to stand fucking 300 yards away. I just don't see the point in that. Like you said, it's purely money, and let's not be fooled by Sky, who are putting out and BT and other companies who are putting out loads of boss Zoom call videos with the presenters. Sky will be saying to clubs, listen, don't restart the season, but we want our money back. Because ultimately, if I paid Greg's for a pasty and then they said we've got no pasties, I'd want my money back. So on one hand, you can understand it from Sky's point of view, but on another hand, we have to understand that Sky will be prodding it and saying, that's fine, don't bring it back, but we want however many 100 million from every single club. And like you said, there's, you know, clubs like Everton will probably be able to go, yeah, here's your money back, we're not bringing it back. But will clubs like Burnley, Bournemouth be able to say, here's your money back? That'll put them in massive trouble.
A lot of people will be watching it as well. If they're stuck at home, the ratings will be through the roof. Exactly. Even just to see what it'll be like. Even if you're not a footy fan, you might tune in just to see what it looks like. Yeah.
Exactly. Go on.
Go on, sorry. Go on.
I think Sky will have there'll be 2 options for clubs. It'll be don't restart it and we want our money back, or do restart it and you could potentially be given more money because of the, like you've mentioned, more people will be viewing, more people will be interested, more people will want to see what's going on and actually watch some football. Whereas, you know, let's be honest, if Brighton and Burnley was on tonight and it was 6 months ago, it'd get views, but most people would probably look and go, Brighton, Burnley, I'll play the PlayStation or I'll watch a film. I'm not that arsed. If they announced now Brighton Burnley were playing, every person in the country that was interested in football would watch it. Because
I'll be going the offie now, like.
Exactly, because it's football, and that's what happened with the Bundesliga. And the Bundesliga will get millions and millions and millions of more views than it would usually get because people will be interested because it's football.
I don't even watch the Bundesliga hardly, but I'll probably watch it next week.
Spot on, mate. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever watched more than 5 Bundesliga games in my lifetime. But as soon as that comes back, I will be watching Schalke every single game to see how John Joe Kenny's doing, because.
Schalke, Dortmund, first one as well.
Exactly, a fantastic game. Dortmund as well, some brilliant players. But I agree 100%. It should only come back when it's safe to do so, and that's not just safe as in it's completely safe for the players. That's safe as in football should come back when it can return with the same rules the same amount of players, the same, you can slide tackle, you can celebrate. All of this other nonsense is just going to ruin it for me. But at this point...
What do you think will be in the stadium, Cam?
What do I think? What, sorry?
How many people do you think will be in that stadium?
I think, personally, over 200, 300 people will have to be on tap. I think... It's easy to sort of think, well, you could get away with maybe a couple of coaches, an official and two sides, but then you've got to have people who are opening up the stadium, you've got to have the groundsmen, because they're not going to let Premier League athletes who are paid stupid amounts of money a week run out on a pitch that hasn't been looked after for however many weeks. They're going to have the television rights people, presenters for them television shows will probably have to be there, won't they? Like you said, I don't know how many people work on a Sky broadcast every week, but I'm assuming it's upwards of 50 to 100. Potentially you'll have to have medical staff who are there to be on.
The only thing with that, right, I don't want to, like, I'm not going to get political or not, and I never tweet politics ever. It's just not for me. I don't ever get it. But if you're going on about that, and every one of them people need testing twice a week, how many tests is that could go to other people who need it?
Exactly, mate.
It's a game of footy, but
exactly.
On the other side, the financial game comes in as well, so it is still people's lives in a different way.
Yeah. So
it's one of the hardest questions that anyone has had to answer. I think it's just so difficult.
It is.
And I am very interested to see how they're going to go about it, to be honest.
It is. And they originally said, every player and official would be tested twice a week. And I roughly worked it out at about 1,000 tests a week, just based on how many players there is in every Premier League club, how many officials. That's 4,000 tests a month on Premier League players and officials. I've got a family just personally who all work, pretty much all of us work in the social care environment. My mum hasn't been tested, my dad hasn't been tested, my sister hasn't been tested. Me girlfriend hasn't been tested, she's still going into work week in, week out. So you're spot on. Could those tests be given to just people who are more, who are more at risk at the moment? But then the financial gain comes. It's difficult. It is really, really difficult. And another big thing is obviously there would need to be staff, NHS staff or St John's ambulance staff working at these games. Is that taking them away then from where they need to be potentially, in helping people that are suffering from this virus? Because I can't even begin to imagine a situation a little bit like the Gomez one happened, and there was no medical staff there to be able to help, and he couldn't be rushed to a hospital because it's difficult, innit? It's difficult, but I think they'll bring it back personally. I just really hope that it's as safe as possible, and I really hope that the Bundesliga returning is as safe as possible as well, because on one hand I'm reading news articles from Angela Merkel saying that they've just experienced this second wave and that she's thinking about them going back into lockdown again, and on another hand the government are giving the green light on football. So I just hope it's completely safe to do so, mate, because I just think it could go terribly wrong if it's not.
It doesn't send out, like Andy Burnham was on telly this morning, and I was just totally agreeing with everything he said. He said it's not really setting a great example to people as well. If footy, obviously, like, if you know what the virus is, you're not going to take any notice. But some people don't. They'll see that and go, "Oh, well, I'm doing it, so I'll do it." That's what some people are like,
exactly. And attitudes will change, because you'll get people who aren't interested in... There's a lot of people in this world that are interested in football, but there's a lot of people in this world who don't like football whatsoever and simply don't have an interest in it. And there'll be a lot of people, not saying it'll be all the people that don't like football, it'll probably be people that like football as well, that'll think, well, if Premier League football can come back and they can go and kick a ball, I can surely go and see me nan, or I can surely go and see me brother, or I can surely go and see me father. And that could have detrimental, and a detrimental effect on people's lives, purely because, like you said, and like Andy Burnham said, it's just setting a bad example. It really, really is. And we don't know what Boris is going to say on Sunday. Ultimately, we don't know how the lockdown's going to be eased. But, if you're telling us, for example, that we have to stay in our house and we can't go and see our close family members, but 11 lads who are from different households, live in different areas, haven't mixed for 7 weeks, they can come together and kick a ball together with each other. It's like, do you know what I mean?
There's people saying, they'll be the most protected people on the planet because of how much they're worth. I'm not so sure that them players going on that pitch are more protected than I am sitting at home.
Yeah.
And I don't care how much money they're worth.
Exactly. If they're a human being, the human body is not different.
They're getting tested every week, but they're still going over to the wives who've been to the supermarket.
Yeah. The kids, young kids. Somebody, I was watching a Man City channel a couple of days ago, and so one of the presenters made a great point. David Silva's got a young boy who had multiple complications in hospital from birth. You know, there was a point where it wasn't looking great. Obviously, you know, his son's come out of it and is doing really well now. But is David Silva going to go, yeah, I'll go and kick a ball around with 20 odd strangers that I haven't seen for weeks, potentially catch this virus and pass it on to my son who's had loads of complications already and he's only 18 months old? He'll probably turn around and go, no, why would they risk it?
Exactly. You know what? This is... I made the prediction on Twitter yesterday, and a load of people agree with me, and it was nothing to do with me anything about, you know, Liverpool winning the league, even though I did mention it, but I could actually see it coming back for about 2 games. Someone gets symptoms and they void it.
Yeah.
And Liverpool just might have won it by then anyway. Not that it matters, I'm just saying I can see where it might come back and then just get voided because it all has to cancel again. I could see that happening.
I was talking about this with my dad before, and I said ultimately they could bring it back for 4 days and Liverpool could win the league within those 4 days. They could play a game on the first day back, a game on the third day back, win it mathematically then, and then they could just go, in end of the year, no teams get relegated, they get the title because they've won it, and then not have to worry about it. But again, we've seen the French league, you know, cancel it but give PSG the title, and 4 hours later Lyon was saying, right, well, we're going to court over it because they hadn't mathematically won it and we could have won it. Okay, probably would not, but we could have won it, so we're taking you to we're taking you to court over it. So it's really...
And what happens if someone gets symptoms and then gets really bad in hospital and then they get to court because of that?
Exactly, mate, exactly. And I don't know the official term, and I'm not going to try and guess it because I'll make myself look like an idiot, but there's some form of manslaughter that would fall under that. And, you know, it's tough at the moment. And you do have to think... I always think back, and it blows me mind when I think about it. If Mikel Arteta wouldn't have tested positive for the coronavirus, we would have been in shit street, because those Premier League games would have gone and hundreds of thousands of people would have been at risk, because 40,000 people on average would have been in every stadium over the country. Players would have been there, people would have been mixing. You can have your no touching hands, touching elbows, but if a player's sliding into another player and there's sweat going everywhere, I sit back and I've thought a couple of times, if Mikel Arteta ultimately has saved lives in being tested positive for it, because there was no way they were going to postpone the league. They come out an hour before and said all games are to continue, and it was only when they, Arteta come out and said, hang on, I've tested positive for this, that's when they went, oh shit, we should probably do something here. So
yeah, I remember saying to the lads, I was like, this derby is not going to go ahead on Monday, and this was on the Monday before, and as the week was getting on, I was just like, aren't they going to cancel these games? And it got to the Friday, I think, when Arteta got it, and that's when they cancelled it, and I was just like, yeah, when you think back, he's probably saved a lot of lives there, hasn't he?
He has, ultimately, he has, by getting it, because, you know, would they have seen the light, and would they have thought, I probably shouldn't do this? They probably wouldn't have. God says, I think that we're bringing another centre-half. We have to sell Keane and have a youngster filled in and called upon to be the 4th centre-half. Maybe Lewis Gibson. Who knows? Yeah. John says, agreed. Gord Gibson's been brilliantly... agreed, had played brilliantly for Lewis Gibson. Sorry, I think he should be given a fair go next season. I think he needs to be, really, and he's at that age now where he sort of needs to be pushed towards the first team.
Pre-season, like.
Yeah, he's had a good season for Fleetwood, to be fair. Obviously, it's different.
I mean, pre-season as well with us, he looked alright.
Yeah, he did. He's a good, dominant, young, confident centre-half again, and somebody that we would want to see in the Everton first team, I think, in the near future. Certainly after he's settled into the squad. You just Everton linked with Kakia. Don't know an awful lot about him, if I'm being honest. Know a lot about him, mate?
No.
Don't know an awful lot about him myself.
What's his name, sorry?
Kakir. Kakir.
No, sorry.
It's a spelling mistake for Fakir, but I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know an awful lot about him. What we thinking then? Would you sell Keane in the summer? I think, again, it depends on where we're at financial fair play wise, and if we bring in another centre half ultimately. Because if we don't, no, wouldn't sell any of them, because it's just putting us in a dodgy situation, isn't it?
I think it's one of them, Cam, isn't it? If he goes, I don't think we'll be broken hearted.
No,
put it that way.
No.
But if he stays, it's a good squad rotating player, I suppose.
Yeah, spot on. Do you think we need to get rid of Theo Walcott this summer? Or in the next transfer window, whenever that may be?
Oh, Oh yes, personally, yeah, because I know he scored against Watford, but I remember that game, and he
was dreadful, wasn't he?
Yes, he was terrible, and he was just messing up so many times. But he does it all the time. His end product is terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd be suited better up front in this 4-4-2, but obviously you're not going to drop them two, are you? So yeah, and he's getting on now. If we can get a bit of money for him and bring someone else in on that, right? Yeah, definitely. But again, I think he's the only right winger we've got, isn't he?
Well,
so
yeah, it depends if you want to
that's another one, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree, and he's only going downwards, and he's not going to get any better. He's not going to become any more consistent, so if we can get a little bit of money for him, I'd be selling him straight away. I really, really would. John says, Schalke are a very Everton type of club, to be honest, lads. Very similar values. There you go. I expect to see them get absolutely battered by Dortmund then next week.
Well, they're my team for the next few weeks in the German league then.
Definitely. I can't wait to be bitterly disappointed every single week. It'll set us up nicely for Everton, won't it? It'll set us up brilliant. It's all good, the Everton play watchbacks that they're doing, but I'm sort of sitting there thinking, we don't win every week. Put a watchback on where we get absolutely bladdered by Sunderland or something, and we can all sit in and go, that's the Everton I remember. Ewan says, did you watch the last night's watch back Everton Man United? I didn't catch it, unfortunately. Did you catch it? 4-0 last year it was.
I think I tuned in for the Sigurdsson goal, was it? But yeah, I remember that game fairly well. It's one of them. I can't really sit there and watch a full 90 minutes, to be honest. I watched the derby where we won 3-0, but I only watched the first half. Yeah. You know, with the two Andy Johnson goals, I couldn't sit there and watch the full game.
It's difficult with Everton, isn't it?
I don't know why. It's just because I know what's going to happen, I suppose. I like watching extended highlights and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. James says, hey up lads, just joined and liked. How many viewers? Thank you very much. 8, if we can get to 10, that'll be amazing. Share the video if you're enjoying, by the way. Please do hit the like button as well and subscribe to the channel. James says, my pleasure. Get the viewers in. Gordon says, so that the Dutch League won't let fans in the stadium till there is a vaccine. And it's a vaccine then. I've read that today, very interestingly come up on my Sky before. Obviously, we know the Dutch League were one of the first ones to just say, listen, done completely. No, we're not continuing it. There's not going to be any stress, no worry, it's done. They've now said that they're not going to let fans in until there's a vaccine. Do you think that will follow suit with that? Obviously, after, let's just say this season gets finished behind closed doors and it's done, before the new season, do you think they will say, right, okay, we may start the new season, but we're not going to let fans in until you know, people can get, ultimately, if not tested, you know, be given a vaccine for it? Do you think that's the right decision as well?
I think it'll depend on how these isn't 9 games left?
9 games.
Or the rest of the season, I'll just say. How that goes, if it's successful, they'll probably just won't think twice about starting the season again, the way they've gone on. Yeah. I don't think we're going to be in stadiums this year at all. And yeah, it'll probably be when we've got a vaccine and, you know, it's secure to go in. I think one of the last things you're going to see is massive thousands of fans gathering in one place. It'll be one of the last things that happens, and it's unfortunate because I just can't wait to get back. But it's, yeah, like you said, it's the right thing to do, probably.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be the last thing personally. I think football stadiums, concerts will be the last things to reopen and to allow fans back in. I think nightclubs and stuff like that will be just before. But you know, you think of Everton football, you think of your Goodison Park, you know, 40,000 people in close proximity. And when you say close proximity, literally within touching distance. You know, you're standing close next to each other when you go for a wee. Don't know if you've ever been to Goodison. I know you have, Jordan. I'm just generally in the chat. When you go for a wee, you've got people on top of you, underneath you, on your back, above you, behind you. So, you know, it's probably the most unsafe place to be, any football stadium at this point. So, I agree. I even read an article the other day that said we mightn't even be back at football stadiums in 2021. It might be 2022. And, you know, I have this little bit of a horrible. I just hope we can be back at Goodison for a lengthy time before we move into the new stadium. And I know we will, because we won't move into the new stadium until 2024. But I'd like at least 2 full seasons at Goodison before we move in to the new stadium, because I don't know. It's a bit of emotional one, isn't it?
I know. Saying that, you know what, Cam, you could see a full season behind closed doors.
That's what they're talking about next season, aren't they?
Yeah, I just hope not, because I am really missing it now. Like, I mean, I said to my mum the other day, the only thing I'm missing because like I said at the start of the video, my hobbies are indoors anyway. I'm not that bothered. I'm missing my family for one, and the other one is going to match with my mates.
Yeah.
It's my favourite thing to do outdoors, and I just hope it's not 2022. That is a killer, but
it is, isn't it? It's
one of them. It could be on an hospital bed, couldn't you? It's not the end of the...
That's it, and I, if they open Goodison Park tomorrow, it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good. So it's horrible and it's frustrating and it's sad, but we've just got to do what's best, haven't we? Until it's ultimately safe to do so. And I'm hoping that when we're reading articles to say that they may play a full season behind closed doors, I'm hoping that season would end in 2022. Would it end in 2022? I think it would, wouldn't it? I'm hoping that there'll be a vaccine before 2022 to this virus. So ultimately, it may be halfway through next season. It may be the start of the season after. But who knows what the Everton team will look like at that point. We mightn't even see Michael Keane play for Everton again live. So
there might even be a transfer window. I don't think many clubs are going to go. I think it's just going to be like loan deals and free transfers, and I don't think you mightn't see many 50-60 million pound transfers.
No, you won't because clubs won't be able to afford it, will they?
Well, they're not going to risk it either, are they?
Yeah.
Even if they can afford it, it's a massive risk.
Yeah.
Because 60 million quid's not pocket change, is it?
No.
So, yeah, Michael Keane might be retired when we come back.
he might be. Or he might have won a Ballon d'Or and been our most successful player. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows where we'll be?
So.
Jeff says, great point you're raising. I see someone had to speak to Guardiola over the reputation of the league. Something going on there. But Guardiola, again, has just lost his mum over the virus. So do you think Guardiola's going to be straight off, let's get back into footy, I can't wait to go? He's probably going to be another one saying, you know what? I'm not really interested in.
There's definitely going to be people who don't want to come back. Yeah. I don't know what they can actually do if it's in the contracts, but I mean, if enough of them stand up, it might... It's one of them, Carl. It's just... I wish I knew the answer, mate. I really do.
At the end of the day, it will, and I'm not saying any of these players would do that. I'm not saying that go against the government or the club. But if Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Mason Holgate said, we ain't coming back, just randomly, coincidentally, 3 of them said, we ain't coming back because we don't feel safe, we don't want to come back. Who do we play? Who do we play up front? Who do we play? We're excuse the language, but we're bollocks for the rest of the season then. Because...
I think what you might see as well is, when it's up, if Everton are only going to be guaranteed like 9th or 10th after a few games, you might just see a lot of young players playing.
Experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe that'd be a good thing. Maybe it'll be a bad
thing. Just for experience. I mean, like they mightn't want to risk. It's not. I don't mean that because they're more expensive in the people's lives, but they might just take less precautions of playing the same players all the time. Yeah. So, instead of playing Richarlison for 10 games, they might just play him for 5 and play a youngster for 5. So it lessens the risk of both players getting it.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the cross-contamination argument. And on one hand, you're thinking, well, ideally, wouldn't be the case, but ideally, 9 remaining games, it would be the same 9 players playing those same 9 games. It will be the same substitutes on the bench. At one hand, you could say that because obviously that cuts out the cross-contamination. But ultimately, on the other hand, they're talking about bringing 5 subs in. And I know full well now, Andre Gomez, Richarlison, Moise Keane, Alex Iwobi wouldn't be able to play 10 games within the space of 3 weeks consistently because they just wouldn't be fit enough to do it. They just wouldn't be fit enough to do it. I want to... Don't put Calvert-Lewin in there because every time I'd log on to any form of social media, I just see Calvert-Lewin absolutely smashing out anything, any exercise he can get his hands on. But ultimately, that just doesn't go for Everton. That goes for every team in the Premier League. You're not going to get a team in the Premier League who will have 11 players who can play every one of the remaining games because they won't be fit enough to do it. But then you mix them...
And they got to talk about a game, 2 games a week as well, or 3 games a week.
I had 3 games a week today, obviously.
Yeah, so 1 on the weekend, midweek and weekend again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So and if you're a footballer and you've been out for, what is it now? 7 weeks? 6, 7 weeks? Yeah. 7 weeks. If you're a footballer and you've been out for 7 weeks, 7 weeks on Monday it is, you're not going to be able to go and play 3 games a week.
Is that the reason they were going to say shorten in the arse, or?
I think that was part of it, yeah. They also talked about 5 substitutions instead of 3 to allow players, more. I think they'll probably speak about roll on, roll off substitutions. That wouldn't surprise me as well. Just to freshen things up. I think that was part of the reason as to why they were talking about shorter games and shorter halves is just player fitness and players being... at the end of the day, if you're playing 3 games a week, you know, you're going to be more fit playing 3 60-minute games than 3 90-minute games, aren't you? Or you're going to be, you know, less fatigued, I suppose. But again,
it's not the same game, though, is it? I mean, when you go back to before, the stuff you can't do, like sliding in and all that, even celebrating is nothing to do with really playing the game, but that's still a big part of football, and even that, you can't celebrate. It's just one of the best things is seeing the players celebrate.
It is. And you know, you've got, you know, whenever Everton score, typically, it's definitely whenever we score an important goal, the players are all over each other, jumping on each other. The fans are getting involved. Players are diving into the crowd. You've got... I just remember the sheer emotion when Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored that goal against Manchester United, and Michael Keane was throwing himself at the crowd. Yeah. You had players diving in front of each other, getting involved. I simply cannot imagine a world in which an Everton player scores a goal in the last second to win a game, and they just all walk back to the halfway line. I just can't. I just can't see it. Because whether I'm in my living room, if I'm in my living room, the table's getting flipped. If I'm at Goodison Park, I'm going mad. I just can't see a world in where players don't have that connection with the fans, because that's something that is massive emotionally for fans to see players, how much it means to the players. It just invests us more into the game, doesn't it? If Richarlison scores in the last minute and then throws himself into the Gladys seat, you know there's that real love, there's that real connection between the player and the fans. If the players have to turn around and go back to the halfway line, it's like it's a bit of a killing in the mood, isn't it, really?
I don't know how that would trickle down and affect me, to be honest, as well, because if I'm watching it at home and it might seem like a proper game and I might just go get in. Yeah. You know, but usually I'm bouncing around the house and that, but exactly. I might just go, oh yeah, we've scored.
Exactly.
I don't know, I'd have to see how it works, so...
It's difficult, isn't it? It's like, because we know that we've got not much riding on the season, Everton-wise, we could potentially fight for the Europa League place. You do have to think, are we going to be sitting at home watching Everton with no crowd, and are we still going to celebrate as we usually would, or is it just going to be a case of a little bit like it would be if we were watching a pre-season game where there's no fans in the stadium, we're playing a game that ultimately doesn't mean much, obviously taking away the Merseyside derby that we'll have to play, and we just sort of go, oh, get in, what a goal that was by Dom, or is there going to be that same emotion there? Because I know whenever I watch Everton at home, I'm screaming, I'm shouting, I'm jumping, I'm up and about. It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult to know what'll happen.
I don't even know if the game will look like it's being played like it usually does, because I think a lot of players react to fans in the crowd. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how if they're gonna put loads of fan crowd in and fan noise and stuff, but I just can't. I don't know. I feel like players get more energy when the crowd's up for it as well. So you might see a slightly different game, like a lower standard even. I don't know. It might. I mean, I'm guessing,
That's it. And then I seen, I think it was Mönchengladbach have got this thing where you can submit a picture on their website and you can pay £20, and they basically cut it out and put it in the stands, and it acts as one of them fans. And visually, that might look okay, and it might make the stadium feel a little bit bigger. It's going to be massively tough to do that in every Premier League ground, because you're needing hundreds of millions of cutouts, and where they're getting the cardboard from, I don't know. But ultimately, it's us as fans, we know, if I see a cardboard cutout sitting in my seat at Goodison Park, I know I should be there, not you. And they might be able to, Sky and soundboards might be able to, sort of, I don't know, make it look and sound as realistic as possible, but it's still going to be tough, isn't it? And I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea either, because I think if you're watching a game of football and there's 50,000 cut-out people in seats, it's probably going to be, even if it's slightly better than watching it with every single seat empty and the stand empty, and you're not being able to see anything. But how much better it will be, I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? It's going to be tough.
It's just gonna be weird to see, I think. But yeah, obviously, it brings a little bit of realism back, I suppose. But I'd rather have the cutouts than not.
Yeah,
put it that.
Exactly. I agree.
I don't know if I'll go pay 20 quid for one.
Exactly, that's what I mean. And you've got, and I'm not gonna name names of people, but some people are sending in photos of serial killers, put it that way, and Mönchengladbach are like printing them and being like, yeah, Sam, there you go, because obviously they haven't got a clue rather. So maybe at this point it's just become a bit of a competition. But let's see if you can pause a Mönchengladbach game and see if you can see any stupid faces in the crowd. But I don't know. I agree. I wouldn't be paying 20 quid to have a cardboard cut out of myself at Goodison Park.
No, it won't even be at Goodison anyway.
Yeah, or wherever else. I'd want that cut out at the end of it anyway, definitely, to come and sit in my room, maybe put it up there. I've been to Wembley and the London Stadium to watch Everton, but I actually haven't. It's this cardboard cut out sat behind me. Where are we? Jem says, oh no, I just read that one. Eugene says, what do you think of BT Sports score Robbie and Chris Sutton? I don't really have an opinion on them, if I'm being honest with you.
Robbie Savage, is that?
Yeah, Robbie Savage, yeah.
I don't really watch BT Sport. I've just watched I've watched it a couple of times instead of Gillette Soccer Saturday, and I think them two are on it. Chris Sutton always seems to just want to argue with everyone. But yeah, I don't really have much of an opinion on them.
I can honestly say I haven't watched any Sky, I haven't watched any BT, I haven't watched anything.
I'm out back when the footy was on. Like,
yeah.
I know it's a different program, but them two were on it.
Yeah. Jem says we might move straight into Bramley-Moore Dock with the new ground and the league just starts again. I hope not, because that would kill me. That would. I don't think that'll be there. I think we'll well be back by 2024, 25, whenever the stadium's going to be built. But I hope not.
I think we'll be back then.
Yeah, definitely. Jeff says I didn't know that, Cam, but I know I wouldn't in these circumstances. Jake says Cam is the best. Go on, Cam. Thanks very much. Jem says they need to sort the vaccine ASAP, and until everyone will be on guard over this, that's the end of it. It should be too. I agree, spot on. And she also says definitely Germany is the benchmark, and our upper echelons should be looking to the Bundesliga for tips to what to do. But I bet we choose a different path. Again,
I think they are waiting for the Bundesliga to see how it pans out.
Once the Bundesliga starts up again, and as long as it starts up and it's working relatively okay, it'll be a domino effect. Then you'll see Spain, you'll see Italy, you'll see England, you'll see a lot of countries that haven't already made decisions come back. But I just hope the Bundesliga is absolutely safe to do so. I really, really do. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's live stream. If you have enjoyed, please do hit that like button. It only takes a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Massive thanks to Jordan for coming on, as per usual. I'm sure we'll be back at some point in the future with another one of these. Thanks for coming on, mate. Hope you've enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it, mate. Yeah, thanks for everyone for sending the questions in as well.
Definitely. Big thanks to everybody in the live comments. Really, really do appreciate that. It means a massive amount to us. If you're new, like I said, please do subscribe. Leave a like if you're enjoying the stream. And if you've enjoyed the stream, if you're watching a YouTube video, leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. And we'll get into those as well. You can come and join me on the Mighty Blues. We stream 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you're interested. And drop us a like and a subscribe as well. Big thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you soon.